Welcome to the Pursuit of Progress podcast, where curiosity and creativity meet to explore the future we're building. I'm your host, Dane, and joining me is Trey, the time traveler, visiting us from an undisclosed point in the future.
In this podcast, we'll dive into the fascinating realm of tech innovations such as AI and self driving cars, giving you a deeper understanding of the groundbreaking technology that is transforming our world.
We'll also discuss the world of finance and investing, helping you understand the complexities and opportunities that shape our financial future.
Beyond finance and tech, we'll explore the human experience, discussing life philosophies and thought provoking ideas that can help you navigate your personal journey.
Our podcast is designed for anyone interested in learning more about the world around them, whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or simply someone seeking inspiration and knowledge.
Join us as we engage in thoughtful conversations, explore new ideas, and gain insights that can help shape your path forward. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the audience. Last week we spoke about a future, a future with AI, and we wanted to double down on that and actually show some examples. So last week we also spoke about Chat GPT as one of these AI platforms that are taken over. Um, since then, they have launched a variety of plugins. Trey's going to explain a little bit more about what that is. I have not seen a lot of these in action, so I'm going into it pretty blind, um, much like I'm guessing a lot of folks in our audience are as well. So, Trey, over to you to walk us through, maybe give us a high-level overview of what is a plugin, how is it relevant to ChatGPT, and what can we do with it?
Yeah, awesome. Let me know if you can see this or not.
I gotcha.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. So, first off, a plugin. Think of it, if you're familiar with APIs, it is essentially an API from different sources to the brain, which is ChatGPT. If you don't know what an API is, think of it like a toolbox. So you, as the builder, are the brain, which this is ChatGPT in this case, and then you have screwdrivers, you have a hammer, you have nails, you have all of these different tools that you can then use to help get a job done. And so that's kind of what a plugin is. And if you are a paid subscriber to ChatGPT, you have this functionality built into the ChatGPT platform. And so here you have this option, plugins, and we'll dive in later on into this code interpreter option here. But plugins, this is a super powerful thing because ChatGPT by itself is just a lonely brain stuck in 2021, and it can make cool raps for you, write poems and papers, and everybody knows all about that. But now with plugins, you can actually plug into things like the internet, like Zillow, like Redfin, and you can see here this is essentially an app store of plugins. And so this is a little small probably to see, so I'll bring these up here. And we won't run through all of them today. It looks like there's even more than the last time I checked. So this is awesome. But we'll cover those maybe later. So some of the most popular right now are some of them that were released earlier this year. Instacart, everybody's probably saw the Instacart plugin. If you're familiar with this already, this is where you can basically create your entire meal plan, and it will plug into Instacart and create your actual shopping cart for you right from the app. So you're not no longer having to go and dig through the different ingredients lists inside Instacart. It does all of that work for you. It's already saved me hours of just doing grocery shopping. But yeah, so let's go ahead and see some of this in action. And I went ahead and took some of the time away and ran through some of these uh, integrations for you. So first off, Lowe's. So if you go to Lowe's, you typically are going to go for a project. And so for this one, I said I need to revamp my garden, creating shopping lists for me of different tools and supplies for this. And so it said, yeah, these are the different tools you would actually need. And so it actually used the Lowe's plugin to then find those specific pieces that in order for me to actually get that gardening job done. And so you can see it broke down the gardening gloves. Well, here's 3 different types of gardening gloves I could go get, uh, and a gardening trowel. And gave me different ones, and all these are links to the Lowe's app, which is pretty nice. So again, cut out all that heavy lifting for me to actually go to Lowe's and search through the different aisles to hopefully find these things for me, or find these things by myself, I should say. So that's just a really simple example. One that I really wanted to show is you have Redfin, so similar to Zillow. Redfin, you can actually search for a home inside Chat GPT. And I wanted to go one step further because with plugins, you can actually include up to 3 plugins in one session to bounce off of each other. So for this example, I was going to be a realtor and I wanted to find a 3-bed, 2-bath house in downtown Dallas. And it gave me these 5 different places that are open. And I said, cool, could you create me a sales pitch for the 4th option in this list and create an audio file for that specific pitch and make it a woman's voice and put it in Spanish. And so it used Speech Key, which is another plugin, and actually followed through with that. It created the pitch and it put it all in Spanish and provided the link where I could actually click into it and it would play that actual uh, oh, and the link expired, of course. But what this actually did is provide. We did not demo this prior. So what this link actually provided was the actual audio file for this actual pitch that I could download and then plug into whatever pitch deck I was trying to do for that time. And then I changed my mind. Said, actually, could you do this in English, please, and make it a male voice? And so it went ahead and converted it all and actually made a link. I'm not going to click this one because I already know it's going to be expired, but it would actually put out the
Hmm.
English pitch for this as well. So just again, a little idea of what this can do. Uh, Another example is I wanted to celebrate my wife the following week. She loves sentimental gifts and handwritten notes. Additionally, like to cook a dish. That's her favorite cuisine. That's also Italian. Could they help me out? And so I plugged in the Tasty plugin, which if you don't know Tasty, I'm sure most of y'all do. It's just they make cool videos of different dishes that you can get. There's also a gift wrap plugin, so they help find gifts for you. And then I also used Instacart for this example. And so uh, it first searched for what kind of gifts, based on what I gave it, what kind of gifts would be sentimental to my wife. And so it gave me plenty of really cool options. And I said, awesome. Could you suggest a dish as well and make it simple yet sophisticated ingredients? And so it searched tasty and gave me 3 different options that were Italian. And I said, ooh, I really like that ricotta tartine. It looks amazing. It did look amazing. It was only $5, so price conscious. I'll take it. And I said, what's the recipe and the ingredients so I can purchase them? And so it used Tasty and it used Instacart and consolidated all the ingredients, gave me the instructions, and then gave me the full recipe. And then it made my shopping easier and created this link for Instacart and gave me all the ingredients. As I said earlier, gave me all the ingredients now in my shopping cart. And I can just add these items to my cart and I'm on my way. So
Hmm.
literally something that would be an hour-long exercise for me to think through all of these things, come up with the dish, go out and buy the things, figure out what all those things I need to buy. I was able to do that here in probably 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
This is just an example of the power of this. Dane, I don't know if you want to chime in or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so just to recap, so we have this chatbot which has been trained using machine learning models. Um, we now have this tool of plugins, which we can think of as like tools in our tool belt. They're connected. This Chat GPT and all these different tools are connected via an application programming interface, an API. And now, essentially, what we can do is instead of just talking to this chatbot, asking it for ideas, maybe asking it to write a paper for you, summarizing a book, you can actually take written and spoken word and feed it instructions, and it can interface with the different apps that we already have in and use in our daily lives. So I think probably the example that stuck out the most to me as probably being the most utilitarian is shopping and adding stuff to your grocery cart. I'm resident chef of my household, so typically do a lot of the meal prep and groceries and stuff. So while I might not necessarily use grocery delivery because it's 7 minute walk away, um, it's a it's a massive time saver, especially for folks that are in already in the habit or have super busy lifestyles that are using those types of services already. Um, and then when it comes to things like finding a home, oftentimes some of like navigating those real estate websites can be a little bit confusing. You've got a bunch of different filters that you have to sort through,
Hmm.
a lot of scrolling, versus here you can essentially just tell the AI exactly what you need in a conversational manner, which is a hell of a lot easier than going on Google, finding a website, like searching for houses in Dallas, trying to find a website that you trust, whether it's Zillow, Redfin, or whatever, Open Door, um, and you can just converse with an AI that basically, because it's trained on these large language models and can understand the human language to some degree, actually perform useful tasks for you. Um, so probably the one that stuck out to me as the most beneficial from a time standpoint was probably Instacart, because that's an example of where you literally don't even have to move at all.
Hmm.
You just talk to a chatbot for a couple minutes, and then bingo, it's already integrated with the service that you're already using, where you have an account set up, and bing, press checkout, groceries show up at your door. So that I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really the just the start, right? Like, so even the real estate example with Redfin, like this is still an alpha, so it's just started. Uh, Now, just imagine uh, having a plugin called Real Estate Agent, and it does the full end to end of what an agent would do, right? It's not just finding the home. It's well, it would then search out the home that would actually best fit you, and then actually would uh, continue that conversation with the homeowner, help you with the contracts with that homeowner. Like, this is just the beginning of what I can envision what plugins could actually be, where it actually embodies a persona of people. Um, and it, aside from the job loss aspect, or what the potential job loss aspect of that, it's still incredibly exciting to think like you have this at your fingertips, kind of like what you're talking about, Dane. Uh, you just you can now just go straight here, and within a couple minutes, you have what was originally a hour and a half, 2 hour long exercise, at least a week, is now fully automated in 2 to 3 minutes. So.
So on that homeowner example, okay, so you talk to a chatbot, you find a house that you like based on the criteria, your location, maybe you fed it information about proximity to school districts, to grocery stores. If walkability is important to you, maybe you put that in as a criteria for you as well. That interfaces with the website. I that's a It's hard to know like what's actually going to happen beyond that point, because I think these large language models are getting really good at conversational aspects. But do you really think that we're moving towards a scenario where you would have essentially an AI serving as your negotiator in negotiating with the house? Maybe you feed it the maximum price that you're willing to pay, some of the concessions, some of the moving dates, and kind of all of those things that go into buying a house. Are we moving in a direction where we're just going to have AIs negotiating with AIs? And if so, how is that like what are the implications for us?
Implications for us. To answer the question,
As as
yes.
as like, for example, I'm a homeowner. I'm trying to sell my house. You are a prospective buyer
Mhm.
using essentially a digital assistant, an AI, to negotiate the sale of my house. I'm also using an AI to negotiate against your AI. How is that? How are we going to? Does it become a matter of like which company is using the same, like um, the better large language models?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you can boil it down to the human processing today, right? So maybe whoever has the most data wins. That's essentially how negotiators win in negotiations today. Whoever has the most data has the most leverage to be able to negotiate the best deal. So imagine, I mean, just in the real estate example, you have an AI that is live connected to all of the comps data for homes live right there. A real estate agent's going to have to go in, run their reports, do the comps manually. I mean, that could take. I mean, even a good real estate agent is going to at least take minutes. Where now you have instantaneous feedback from these AIs to be able to run those comps and then automatically generate a negotiative response to a potential seller on that home. And so I, I if you can break down the process of what the human process is for negotiating a deal, I don't see why you cannot do that with an AI that's plugged into the internet now, right? Um,
Mm.
it can do it faster, more efficiently, more effectively, uh, and isn't bogged down by time. Uh, so
Would you trust an AI to sell your house at this stage?
at this stage, if no, no. I'm
No.
still
Well,
I'm an early adopter, but I would say I'm further along in that bell curve of adoption when it comes to actual assets that I own, especially something as steep as my home. Um,
right.
yeah,
I mean, a house is typically the biggest purchase that anyone will ever make in their life. Uh, the, just above, you know, purchasing a car. I think applications like that where our most prized possessions, in a sense, those will probably take a lot longer to do. Um, but also keep in mind, uh, most of the time, for anyone that's ever needed legal help, Chat GPT using GPT-4, if I remember correctly, scored in the 80th percentile of lawyers. So, so who knows? I mean, it probably is in a place at this point. It's probably just about they're going to need to maybe train it against some real humans, to get to a point where it's good at doing what it does. But I think that that part of humans trusting it to do that on their behalf, especially for something that's as important as a house, will probably that's probably going to take a long time, for us to get super comfortable with that. Long time initially, but then once it takes off, I think it's exponential from there.
I think that maybe at the very least, what AI could do. So kind of have a two-part answer. Uh, House is the like behemoth use case study here, but like let's imagine I'm going out to buy a shirt and I go to H&M. I what if I had an AI that was just live searching all the equivalent shirts, like the H&M black shirt that I'm trying to buy, and I could actually go to the ATM tell or the H&M teller and say, "Hey, there's like five other shirts at these other places that are selling it for $1 cheaper. Would y'all be willing to sell it for $1 cheaper because I want to buy the H&M shirt?" That to me seems like a lower bar negotiation,
Mm.
but something that people be like, yeah, I'll do that. We already do that
Hmm.
with items today, just in silent negotiation, right behind our screens. We're looking for the cheapest deal
Hmm.
wherever that is. What if H&M could tap into that and say, hey, we'd much rather sell a shirt for $1 cheaper than lose the sale. Uh, I think that is kind of a nice and easy adoption uh, entry for people
Hmm.
to start on the smaller scale, and then as that trust grows, so then with the real estate, maybe right now the conversation is, hey, my AI real estate agent processed all of this comp data and gave me this output. The AI thinks this house is worth this much. What do you think? And
Hmm.
that saved the real estate agent hours of their time. Took you a few minutes to make that happen, and
Hmm.
it's a win-win because now the real estate agent can potentially make the sale, get that percentage on the deal, and
Hmm.
you know that it's officially approved by a human at this point, and yeah, I mean that's where I kind of see that conversation going, where it's still efficient on both parties, and then
Hmm.
that will gradually go to, well, if you've confirmed 99 out of 100 times that this is the best deal, okay, then I'm going to trust the
Hmm.
AI from now on, and I don't have to give you 3%.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting. Probably the use cases that'll take off probably why they've gone with Instacart as one of the first plugins is because there's no negotiation there. It's buying things off the shelf. The price is set. So it's more just about getting the order in there and having them show up at your door. Um, so yeah, I think some use cases will take some time, but I mean even in the case of selling your home, uh, if we were to have things like digital real estate agents as plugins for Chat GPT that could interface with other real estate plugins powered by large language models, you would also be safeguarded against if you're a seller, the price floor, and then if you're a buyer the maximum price that you're willing to pay. And then you would have like not to exceed amounts. So as long as you're safeguarded against that, then yeah, remove yourself from the situation, save yourself the money of having to pay a real estate agent up to 3%. These people that these people that make these plugins could just compete on price
Mm,
because instead of having to pay a human, you've got the advantage of scale, which and the cloud infrastructure is virtually infinitely scalable. It's just about adding more servers, so you could completely undercut real estate agents and cut them out of the picture entirely. And maybe the large language models only take like a 0.5% commission, but because of the advantage they have in scale, they make up for it.
yeah, yeah,
And that's a hell of a lot more money and a hell of a lot more purchasing power for buyers and sellers respectively.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean it, it's if you're a real estate agent listening to this, it can seem scary, but I would encourage, like, yeah, how do you get ahead of this? Because
Hmm.
obviously this is definitely coming. It's coming for everybody. But
Hmm.
how do we again tap into this and partner with it so that you aren't caught off guard? But yeah, I mean it's making everything exponentially more efficient. And so yeah, if you can, if an AI company can sap only 5.5%, like that's a win, and it's a
Right.
win on the consumer side as well.
Hmm.
It just makes sense. Uh, eh, yeah, and I think actually, Dane, you maybe brought up a while back, not even a while back, last week, about businesses, Walmart, that was using negotiating software for contracts. Was that you that brought that up?
It wasn't me, but I know where that probably came from. Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of talking into that realm, there's already AI software being used by Walmart to any of their friend, like not lower
The
tiers,
tail spend.
the tailspin suppliers. They to get in a room with a Walmart uh, manager to negotiate contracts and on their specific good.
Hmm.
Sometimes they wait a year just to get a 30-minute call and may not even have anything come out of that. Well, now Walmart's provided a way where they can actually tap into this AI negotiator bot and they can actually negotiate their contract with Walmart
Hmm.
and actually have actionable results from it. So I think you're already seeing it, at least in the corporate space, the B2B space, this happening. And it's really a win for everybody in that case. And so if it's already happening there, it really is just a matter of time where this will just be
Hmm.
easily accepted by people.
And that makes sense because that's a massive productivity boost in these supply chain and sourcing organizations because 80% of your spend following Pareto's principle typically comes from 20% of your supply base.
Hmm.
So if you think about it, you have an incredibly long tail, which is the 80% of things that you buy, but only make up 20% of the spend. So instead of having a massive human overhead, you can just outsource a lot of that where the pricing is more fixed, they're more standardized. It's more about getting quotes and accepting quotes as opposed to negotiating strategic agreements. That's a massive productivity boost. Um, so we're on this podcast, we're all about discussing the latest tech and innovations, but also understand that there are some things that are concerning. When it comes to AI, it's about jobs. So in this example, to continue the momentum that we had on the real estate example, if you were a real estate agent today and you could see the writing on the wall, thinking that you could, even if there's just a slight possibility, get your job displaced by an AI, how would you position yourself today to do things related to that same industry that only a human can do? And maybe that means taking advantage of using these tools. But what would your approach be to surviving this and still having your profession in a couple of years once that type of adoption starts scaling?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Dane. It is, and that's honestly, yeah, it's something that we all need to really be diving into and understanding what is the human factor that even if AI replaced everything about our jobs, what is that? What is that one thing that people would always want that human for, that human touch for? Um, it's because that is going to be the question that will come sooner, way sooner than we think. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, no, that's good.
Do you think Do you think that AI will eventually become capable of true empathy?
True empathy. I don't think until we actually know what's going on inside of our brains that creates empathy and what creates love, you can't have true empathy. You can have they'll have an artificial empathy, right? Like you can already have chatbots today tell you, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that," or I hear and actually try to create this artificial empathy, but
Hmm.
you know it's not genuine. You know it's not authentic. So uh, I'm on the side that probably not, because there's still so many more questions on just understanding our own selves and our own humanness that needs to be figured out before we can even
Hmm.
program that into some sort of AI. So, what about you, Dane?
Right. Yeah. Well, so I think about it as to have true empathy, you need to be truly conscious. So I think that's kind of where we're aligned in the sense that we don't understand enough about what our consciousness is. Therefore, how do we know that an AI is truly conscious?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that there will be, and probably already exists today, an appearance of empathy. And I think that will be, I think that people will be sold in online forums where there's no face-to-face interaction. But obviously the robotics industry is still pretty far behind because, if I'm coming to you and I'm saying, man, I'm really going through a hard time. Um, and if you're talking to a metal robot that's incapable of, changing facial expressions and doing all of these things, that indicate to humans that, oh wow, this person is actually listening to me and understanding me. Um, it's still many decades before we get to Westworld, I think.
Oh,
Um, but I think today the appearance of empathy is AI is probably capable of doing that in text format. And eventually, as these voice models that you were talking about, like the speech key plugins, I think eventually those will get to a point where they'll be completely indistinguishable from humans, probably in as soon as a year or two, because
yeah.
these huge machine learning models are training and learning so fast. But I think it's going to be a while before we're face to face with physical entities that have been completely programmed, can convince us that they have empathy.
I think there's something to say. I think AI will be able to convince us of empathy before it actually conveys true empathy. So going back to the robots, like not being there. I mean, I would actually argue there. I've seen some robots. I forget the name of it. There's some lab that the face on it, the nonverbal, like the raising of the eyebrows and like the
Hmm.
frowning, the frustration, like they're already capturing that. And you you may say it's decades away. I mean, I don't know, but what if it was just virtual? I mean, we're not far away using Unreal Engine to having like vivid, realistic picture uh, um, reality that
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to distinguish that it was real or not. And so, what if it's just what if I could just talk to what I thought was a real counselor on the other side who's sharing the nonverbal and having the intonation in their voice of like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like that would convince me like, oh wow, like this is a legit person. I don't necessarily know their
Hmm.
whole background. Like I just know it's Tom who is hearing me talk about my life, and they're reacting uh, in real time how I'm feeling. That's convincing enough to me that it's empathy, but that doesn't mean that it's actually true empathy on an AI standpoint. So that's
Hmm.
that's my insight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's I think as we if we go into more of a digital age and you today the metaverse is often thrown around as a bit of a buzzword. Um, but I do think that we'll progress there and we will get into situations where if I put on my virtual reality headset that I'll see a realistic photo. Maybe we'll be doing this podcast in virtual reality one day and just recording that as interaction. I do think that we'll get to a point where it's indistinguishable from reality, but I think that at the same time, we will also need to build technology stacks that allow us to know whether it's a real human on the other side or not. And I think topic for a whole nother video, but probably blockchain
Yeah,
and some of the um, identity sovereignty applications will probably be the things that we rely on the most. If you take like a platform like Twitter, they had a massive bot problem, and the way that they're able to solve that is by increasing the cost of creating fake accounts. So I think that we'll get to a place where that becomes really common, where we'll only interact with people and things that we know are human. And I think you'll have the option too. You'll have the option to act with AIs, but they'll be in these worlds clearly labeled as either AIs or validated as real people.
yeah,
And I think there's a bunch of cool there's a bunch of cool applications in the blockchain space that are working on this right now, and maybe we'll explore that in another episode. But I think that that can be one of the ways that we still distinguish between what are computers, like when am I interacting with a computer versus when am I interacting with a human? Because I do think that they will get there in terms of appearance, and then also conversationally as well, in speech and writing.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. a talk for a future episode. I had a really great conversation this past weekend just about authenticating what is an actual person. It's like the whole Drake album thing that came out that was fully AI. Like
Hmm.
some people think it was totally awesome, but it's obviously a robbery of his voice. Like, and at some point, there's got to be a line where that's drawn. That's like you can't just take this from a person. And
Hmm.
so yeah. So there was a passionate conversation this past weekend of how we actually do that. So definitely a conversation for the next episode.
Absolutely. Well, Trey, this has been a blast. I hope you, our wonderful viewers, we had almost 100 views on the last episode, which is
Woohoo!
amazing. Triple digits.
So cool.
Um, we appreciate you all hanging out. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Pursuit of Progress podcast, and um, we'll be back with you later this week.
Yes, we will. No, thanks, Dane, and to all you viewers, y'all have a great rest of the day. Peace.
Thanks all. Peace.